Good morning, friends. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I am your host, John McGinley. I'm joined by Euan Davidson today. We're here to discuss Celtic's big night in Europe. It is a big night in Europe. Look, I think these Europa League matches might creep up on some people. Euan, obviously, I feel like I'm with the people who think the league is the main event at the moment. The Hibs game on Sunday is a massive game. But this competition is here, and we want Celtic to give it their best shot. Celtic haven't won a European tie in over 20 years, so why not give it a good go? I feel like if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be the man who did it last time, Matt O'Neill, who seems to have picked up some extraordinary results in Europe this season, specifically against Feyenoord and Bologna. How are you doing today, and how are you feeling about tonight?
I'm good. I don't know if the bags under my eyes are betraying how accidental late night I had, but yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling strangely optimistic about tonight, which I think has maybe already lost me quite a lot of people. Like, I feel good, man. Like, it's Celtic in Europe. It's a knockout tie. It's a team who they're a very impressive team, but I think that would make victory all the more satisfying. I think we've got a chance, and I think like the league and what we do in Europe is intertwined. I think if we get good results in Europe, that only breeds confidence. So yeah, no, I'm hopelessly optimistic once again, John.
Fantastic, Ewan. Ewan, just you've been on the Stuttgart trail for the Celtic Way this week. You did a full profile of them ahead of this. What are you expecting from the visitors tonight, and kind of what did you find out about them on your travails this week?
Well, I mean, I'd love to say I was actually in no, I was in Stuttgart talking to locals. No, yeah, it was really fun actually. It was spoke to Derek Ray, who's a familiar voice to anyone who either plays a bit of FIFA or has watched ESPN over the last 20 odd years. I spoke to him and Stefan Bienkowski from Transfermarkt, who gave me some really good insight in Stuttgart. Because I'll confess, I used to follow Bundesliga quite closely. I think that sort of waned when Bayern Munich started winning a title every year. But yeah, I do like keeping up with that league. And Stuttgart are I mean, we all remember Stuttgart from 2003, but what they've been through since then has been really interesting. They've been up and down to Bundesliga 2. They've had a trail of managers who did really well at other clubs, came to Stuttgart, and it didn't quite work out. Now they've got Sebastian Hoeneß, who is probably, I think it's safe to say, the next big talent in German football as a manager, as a coach. Very similar trajectory to Julian Nagelsmann, and to an extent Thomas Tuchel. But yeah, they're an exciting team. I think as a neutral, you'd want to watch Stuttgart games from what I've seen, from who I've spoken to. Entertaining team, and it sounds like a bit of a cop out when it comes to what we should expect tonight. Expect the unexpected.
Mm.
Hoeneß isn't necessarily an ideologue like Amarim or Postecoglou were the two examples that came up. He sets his team up for the opposition he's going to face. So we could see a Stuttgart who press really high, fly out the traps from the off. There was a game against Leverkusen where they pretty much won it in the first half, but just by going straight at Leverkusen, pressing relentlessly, not giving them a chance to play it from the back, which Leverkusen are wont to do. That's how they'd like to play. So Martin may have to adapt how we play it from the back. But then there's other games where they've looked a little bit suspect. They look a wee bit slow in transitional moments. So I think that they can be got at. But yeah, that's the overview. Sorry for
No. That I
um,
was I was I
yeah.
was enthralled by your chat there on Stuttgart. I mean, I don't really know what to expect either. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting from a Celtic perspective of how they approach this one. Martin O'Neill very much in his press conference taking the position of we are the underdogs here. This is a very tough match. We're going to do well to get anything out of this. In that kind of coy Martin O'Neill way that he likes to do, where he likes to set low expectations and then overachieve. He's done that
Yeah.
often throughout his career, I feel like. So, listen, Martin O'Neill knows what he's doing. I think he was talking about kind of like the circumstances around this, and that this might not mean as much as some other games this season, and that he wants to give it a go, but we're only here because we didn't want to waste the work of Bologna and Feyenoord, etc. But
Mhm.
I think there's a bit of Martin Neil isms there for me. Like, he'll fancy tonight. He wants Celtic to do well tonight, and I'm intrigued to see kind of how he hits Stuttgart with the team that he's got. and the kind of the players at his disposal. Because if you look at the squad unit, it's not particularly great for the Europa League. Obviously, some players are unavailable, specifically Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, I think, who you would have in that team tonight. I've got a
Definitely.
predicted 11 here, Euan. My problem with the predicted 11, everyone, is I'm not a particularly big fan of the team. This is more the team that I think Martin O'Neill might go with, rather than the one
Yeah.
that I would kind of maybe want to see. I think I've been on a couple of podcasts this week where I've ran out of patience with Rio Hatate.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with Kasper Schmeichel as well, but I could kind of see both of them playing tonight. For oddly, despite my woes with them. So this is the predicted 11 here. I've got Kasper Schmeichel in goal. I've gone for Julian Araujo. Julian Araujo is included in the European squad tonight, everyone. He's one of 3 changes that were made after the winter transfer window. Julian Araujo, Thomas Tranchara, and Junior Adamu are all available tonight. And yeah, I've gone for like this stable back 4. I don't like the midfield. I don't like Nigren and Hatate starting in the same midfield, but I kind of feel like that's what we will see tonight. Ultimately, Ray Hatate obviously played a little bit further forward against Kilmarnock. Nigren came into that deeper role. I don't like it, Euan. I don't know what the solution is though. Have you got any bright ideas on what Martin O'Neill might do with this midfield?
John, you got me thinking about the day-to-day, where I don't like it, but I'll have to go along with it. I think the only change I'd make there is I know, excuse me, sorry. I know Rio Hatate was pushed further forward a little bit, but my concern would be what Stuttgart are capable of doing. They're very, very quick in the middle of the pitch. I think Nygren's lack of pace could be exploited there. They've got players who either they're fullbacks who cut inside, or like they're sort of inside forwards who like to kind of operate in that middle space, a bit like an attacking version of what Greg Taylor did when he was an inverted left back, just getting into the central slots and creating overloads. And they do that quickly, from what I've seen. So having Nygren there, who's not, I mean, I like him. I think he's been a good signing overall, but his defensive contribution leaves a lot to be desired, I think. So I'd maybe have Hatate there just because he's quicker, and I think he's not shown a lot of it this season, but his off the ball work remains probably one of his strengths. Apart from that, it's hard to argue with much of that.
I mean, there's been a bit of chat. I've seen a bit of, and in the live chat today, people are mentioning it too. People commenting about putting Sriracha in midfield, which I understand from like a profile perspective. I don't see Martin O'Neill doing that. I maybe might try it as an experiment. I think I'd try anything as an experiment at this point, because I just feel like Hatate's just lost something within him and how he's doing in this Celtic team. So maybe I would try, but I can't see Martin O'Neill playing a fullback in midfield. I could be wrong, Euan, but it's just not something I see actually happening.
No, me neither. Me neither. There's a certain irony to this in that I personally feel if we had the personnel and everyone was fit, a really good way to set up against the Stuttgart team would be with a back 3 and a bank of 4. It'd be with the kind of mobile fullbacks that we have. You want to limit Stuttgart and keep them inside. Again, just from the kind of analysis I've been doing and watching them play, like they use the wings really. Again, pace is the operative word. You maybe want to force them inside and try and win that midfield battle just by congesting the midfield as much as possible. And to an extent, a back 3 with wide backs would do the thing. But that is the last thing that any Celtic fan wants to hear after the Nancy experiment. So it feels like there's a tactic there that could be really useful, but is also so taboo at this point where it's just like something worth considering. But the sort of the classic Martin O'Neill 3-5-2, like if there's an argument you could maybe have like Adamu playing behind Chanchara or something like that. But again, this isn't really the time to experiment. That's a total hypothetical. But yeah, it's a really interesting one in terms of seeing what Martin O'Neill does with his team selection. I will say, Trusty and Scales, we need an Atalanta style performance out of them tonight. I think Dennis Undav and Demirovic are really, really informed strikers. They were excellent at the weekend. And a lot's made of the Voltemada sale in the summer to Newcastle. They've not missed him at all. They really, really haven't. He wasn't to an extent, he was a talismanic player last season in terms of what he was able to do in a short length of time. But it seemed like a bit of a flash in the pan. And there's definitely an element of Newcastle being quite desperate in the market there. Good player, probably not for the value that he is. So I think don't look for that red herring of, well, they sold their best striker, because they've got their 2 best strikers. Undav's been exceptional. His movement is particularly good. And I think Scales will probably be the one that's matched up against him, who'll have a lot of running to do. But again, like the Liam Scales we see in Europe is, and I'm not always Liam Scales' biggest fan, but when he shows up in Europe, he can be an asset for us. And I think this is the kind of night where he just needs to be relentlessly marking his man. And I think that man will be in depth.
Yeah, one of the reasons I think that Martin will go with Rio Hatate is just because of the comments he made yesterday. Now, he did a broadcast press conference, as everyone may have seen. He also sits down with the written press. This is what he said, the written press on Rio Hatate. He said he's really got to knuckle down and be the player that he was. I think you'd tell me he was a proper player about 2 years ago. I think he's searching for form. I think that's what it is. And in fairness to the lad, he wants to stay for extra. He wants to do things. He's not the first one to leave the pitch at the end of training. I think he's frustrated with it because of the player that he was, and then he has to find the reasons for it. He was then asked, whether, European stage is the stage of redemption for Rio Hatate. Martin Neal not giving anything away. He says he's not picked his team. He says that Rio Hatate, just he has to find what he can offer, and he hasn't of late. And again, he's been pretty drastically poor over the last 2 games. I would suggest he was not good against Livingston. He was not good against Kilmarnock. But Martin Neal giving him the old media, arm round the shoulder there to an extent, which kind of makes me think he's going to turn to him again. But listen, we're going to need Rio Hatate at points this season, because the reality is Arnie Ingles is injured. He's not back until April, it's looking like. So Rio Hatate is going to continue playing for Celtic, whether people like it or not. I know there's a lot, what happens with a player, Euan, sometimes I think is like, obviously a perception forms around them and everyone's just sick of that player. But the reality is, like, he's training with Celtic. He is an option for the manager. He's not going to be bombed out the team forever, between now and the end of the season, because Celtic do not have that luxury. We have to try and get something out of Rio Hatate.
He's such an interesting player, isn't he? And again, I'm not making excuses for him, because I think his performances this season haven't been good enough, and I'm particularly disappointed by it, because I'm a really, really big fan of his, and have been a really big fan of his. I think the way he's been asked to, I think you look at central midfielders and think, well, that's a fairly well-defined role. But under Ange, he was utilised very differently from how he was used under Brendan Rodgers. And then Brendan Rodgers tried him in different areas. Sort of, it's kind of not quite a 10, but then sometimes he played as an 8, and then sometimes he played kind of in the sort of the. I'm going to lose a lot of people here. This is very Football Manager, but in the sort of half spaces and kind of as like a half winger, kind of. He had that really good, like when he was at his best, he was linking up really well with Greg Taylor. Dice Maida on the left hand side, when he was sort of exploiting these spaces, kind of between the two of them.
That was definitely when he was at his best. I think with that Taylor combination, kind of on that left hand side, Maida at times as well. I just think that was when he was at his most functional in the Celtic team. He just looks disconnected for me from the Celtic team at the moment. He was kind of for me. I know this is where I kind of fall down on Martin Neal's comments here. I know he's trying to find form, but I just felt his pressing against Kilmarnock seemed half-hearted. I don't want to ascribe too much intention in his play, but he didn't look connected to the Celtic team, and I think that's maybe my biggest worry around him at the moment.
Yeah, he looks like he's trying to conserve his energy, and I don't mean in a sort of I don't mean he's being half-hearted or lazy. Or I really don't like calling footballers lazy when it's possible to avoid it. But he does feel like he's conserving his energy, in the sense that, like, I sort of wonder if if the injury that he got last season was worse than maybe we understood, and that there's a long-term impact of that, because a lot of the discourse around Hatate is that he's shirking, in a sense, like he's pulling out of 50-50s. He's not pressing as aggressively. He's not trying to win the ball.
I could say that for half the team, Euan. That's the thing. It's true. Like a lot of people pick on individuals, and like half the team, I feel like have been like that this season. I don't think it's like an individual thing on Hatate's, basis.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's as you say, it's an interesting. We all have seen how good he can be. That's the thing. I think that's what makes it so frustrating. And I honestly, I would probably leave him out for a couple of games at the moment, because it just isn't clicking. It just isn't working. But then I don't know if people clamour for Bernardo and McCowan. I don't think they're technically as good as Rio Hatate on a good day. But then, do you get a good day of Rio Hatate? It's a tough. I mean, there's a million different tough jobs for Martin O'Neill at the moment in terms of managing Celtic, and Hatate is probably top 3, top 4.
So the thing about McCowan is McCowan featured quite heavily during Martin O'Neill's first, like, the interim spell. His period of 8 matches or so featured quite heavily. and he's actually not started. He's not started in the league under Martin O'Neill since he came back. So his McCowan's last start in the league was in the Rangers game, that we lost 3-1. He started against Auchinleck Talbot, but he's not started a game since then. And he was starting quite consistently before that. There was like a period of like 6 weeks or so where McCowan was in the team like quite often, and he's just hasn't been since. So I'm not sure what's going on with McCowan and kind of how they're seeing and utilising him, but maybe we'll see Luke McCowan tonight. You never know. You know, there could be a curveball or two, because obviously we've got Hibs on Sunday as well, which complicates things. Yeah, and I don't know if I'd characterise it as excitement tonight, Euan, but like I'm looking forward to see. I always look forward to see what Celtic can do in Europe, and if there's the odd chance of a positive result, then we'll take it. There'll be a lot of discussion about the atmosphere tonight and what transpires with the supporters and who's there and who isn't. You know, it's our understanding. As in, I don't want to preempt too many statements, but my understanding that maybe the meetings with the club didn't go particularly constructively over the last 48 hours or so. I think the kind of the reality of it was as well is that even if like an agreement had been reached to let the Green Brigade back in today, I think the logistics of taking up all the tickets and getting them all organised to be at Celtic Park tonight was always going to be a tall order, given the way that like you can characterise it however you want, but the way I feel Celtic have kind of dragged all this out again, I think all of this could have been wrapped up more succinctly and put a bow on top. Martin O'Neill yesterday suggesting that there had been positive discussions towards an eventual return for the Green Brigade. I think the atmosphere tonight isn't going to be particularly fantastic, Euan. I don't want to, again, I don't want to prejudge the Celtic support, but just my feeling, and I know Stuttgart are bringing a big support, and I know they're going to bring a lot of noise and a lot of colour. I think they have their own ultras, and I think they'll be given permission to bring in banners of sorts, etc. as well. So I think it's going to be a vibrant atmosphere on the away end, and we'll have to see what transpires on the home end. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one to put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there were shoots of optimism from. I know it was a away game, but the atmosphere generated by at the Celtic end at Rugby Park was excellent. And towards obviously the end, that dramatic result last week at Celtic Park. I mean, I just hope that there's momentum brought forward from that. Stuttgart, as you say, they have really their fans are excellent. Our mutual friend and colleague Hamish was he's talked before about the atmosphere at Stuttgart and how good a stadium that is and how raucous that can be. So certainly from an atmosphere point of view, you know, Celtic are up against it. They're very proud. I mean, Stuttgart are kind of they're the biggest team in that state, in that region of Germany. That, you know, it is a big catchment area for Stuttgart. They're very much like they're the club of the district, and they're a really big fan base, and a fan base that's happy to travel and travels well. That said, there have been a couple of bad away results for Stuttgart thus far in Europe. They lost to Fenerbahce. Hunis was maybe accused of tweaking things a little bit too much. Played with a back three kind of out of necessity, and they lost that game. They also lost against Roma. So yeah, they'll have the crowd, but they don't always necessarily travel well. The players don't necessarily travel well. So I mean, there is that possibility of a result. But yeah, you just hope for a proper European atmosphere at Celtic Park, and you're not going to get that without the ultras at this stage. And yeah, Celtic Park's worse for it. To be honest, it's a shame.
Yeah, I mean,
as you say,
seen yesterday, you know, he wants unity back in the stadium. He wants everyone back together. It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen for tonight or kind of any time soon. Really, that's kind of the kind of the messaging I'm kind of getting from all of this is like everything just seems to be dragging on and on. I don't like. There's issues behind the scenes at the club with the Green Brigade and how they perceive them. I'm hoping at some point common sense, you know, comes to the fore, Euan, because you saw at Rugby Park how crucial the support were in pushing Celtic onto that performance. Martin O'Neill saying that yesterday as well, saying essentially, you know, we're not going to get that result if we don't have the fans backing us in that way in that second half. There's so much on the line this season, Euan. It's baffling to me that the club would continue to try and or continue this kind of stance of this division. Like, they've got the power and the leadership and the responsibility to be able to bring people together again, and they're not doing that. And I can't really fathom it, to be honest. I don't really understand it.
No, my only guess is that if they feel that if they can and I'm not trying to, this isn't conspiracy stuff. This is just a logical kind of leap on my view, and I've never been the most logical, so feel free to disregard it. But my take is that I think if Celtic are seen to kind of to have this zero tolerance stance on the noisiest and biggest ultras group or supporters group, if you like, then it sends a message out to any similarly aspirational ones. So like boys, any of the other sort of noisier kind of fan groups. I think maybe if you say to the Green Brigade, like, look, we're not going to, this is, we have to be very, very firm on everything that you do. Then yeah, essentially there's like, well, you've seen what we've done. Like here, don't get ideas above your station. In terms of questioning the board, in terms of sort of sustained protest and that kind of thing. So that's all I can think of really. But yeah, it does seem, sort of cutting your nose off to spite your face a little bit at a certain point, because we know the impact of the fans. We know the impact. I mean, we know how raucous and how brilliant Celtic Park can be, and it's such a shame. Like a game like this, a knockout tie, where we've got like Stuttgart are great. They're a really good team, but we've got a chance of winning at home. And we'd have more of a chance if the stadium was as noisy as possible and filled with colour and one of those sort of classic European nights at Celtic Park. But we're not going to have that just by default, and that's a shame.
Yeah, it is a real shame, and I think it's a detriment to the night overall and going forward for Celtic season. But like, I think, how do you predict what Celtic will do from here? I don't think you can. I think everyone would have assumed by this point that they would have tried to sort this out more adequately than they have. Listen, I understand they have taken meetings with different supporters groups, etc., but there's been no resolution to all of this, and it's. I don't know. I just feel like this could all be done a little bit more urgently for me, frankly, because like, it's February. There's a few months left of the season. We need everyone together again. This is what Celtic need to try, and the players want the support together, the managers want the support together, and the club need to wise up, in my opinion. But I mean, interesting comments today, Euan, from Ange Postecoglou. He's a man who won't be returning to Celtic Park at all. He was on the Overlap podcast, Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, etc. He's been on that a couple of weeks in a row. I think he was on last week specifically talking about Tottenham's situation and how they deal with managers, obviously being one of those being sacked in the last couple of years. Just on a Celtic return, he said, that's the next graphic. He said, I loved Celtic. It is a wonderful football club. If I were younger, I would have stayed there longer, perhaps 3 or 4 years. I could have made progress with them in Europe. However, it would take me a long time to get to this space, and the opportunity to join Tottenham was too good. In terms of going back, I do not go back. That has not been my career. He said, of his next job, whatever the next step is, it'll be something new, something I can make an impact in, and somewhere I can win things. This does not diminish the affection I have. It was a great experience for 2 years to be within a community that is so passionate about the football club. I was fortunate that we had success, so it was a positive experience. I loved every minute and look back on it fondly. It's important with all these things that I made a great decision when I joined Tottenham, but I will not go back. That is not how my career has played out. Listen, if anyone's followed Ange Postecoglou's career to any kind of close degree, I think they would have understood that Ange coming back to Celtic was never on the cards. I never thought it was possible. I consistently have said that because Ange has said this multiple times in his career. He doesn't really go back to clubs that he's been at, especially at this stage of his career and like this, because realistically, he's not at the start of his career, is what I would say. So I don't think he was ever going to come back to Celtic. Thankfully, that kind of puts it to bed, I didn't really want this rumbling on in the background of this Ange could return to Celtic thing. Celtic have a really hard task to go out and find a potential permanent replacement for Martin O'Neill this summer, and I don't think they could be doing with the circus of Ange Postecoglou kind of lingering in the background. So good luck to Ange and whatever he goes on to do, but he's not coming back to Celtic, and I think it's good that that's clear and out in the open ahead of Celtic's manager search.
Yeah, that said, I would caveat by just because he said that. I mean, we were still linked to Patrick Roberts like at least 4 or 5 years after he'd left. So
you can't stop people making up nonsense here. But at least for the fair-minded people, the logical people, if you will, we know Ange isn't coming back.
Yeah, and the logical people are all in the comment section here, so thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole appeal about Ange is that he's different. He operates differently, and I think taking a retroactive step like going back to Celtic, where maybe the environment itself isn't comfortable, given that all that's happened at Celtic recently. But I think that would be him stepping into his comfort zone, which again is a mutually exclusive thing from a general comfort zone. His comfort zone is way out in space compared to any of the rest of us, but it's just not him. It's not. He's motivated by challenge. He's motivated by doing something different, and he's motivated by proving people wrong. He wouldn't be proving anyone wrong if he came back to Celtic and won more trophies because everyone knows what he's capable of. So it doesn't. No, it's just it would be very on Ange. And don't get me wrong, I love the guy. I would take him back to Celtic in a heartbeat. And if he's ever in Glasgow without a pint in his hand, that's a crime. But yeah, I would, like you say, it wouldn't make any sense. And yeah, hopefully the board hear this idea of not going back to try to restore former glories, and looking ahead and trying different things. Hopefully the board take that to heart because goodness knows they could use that lesson, I think.
Yeah. And listen, I think, I mean, I loved Ange. I loved Ange almost from the start. Even when people didn't quite love Ange, I was still on board with him and kind of what he was trying to do at Celtic and trying to achieve at Celtic, this striving for greatness. I feel like Celtic could do with that attitude within the building again. Not that Martin O'Neill doesn't have that, but just like
No.
someone driving towards achieving something new, that hunger with Celtic that they haven't done before. Martin O'Neill has achieved great things at Celtic and appreciate everything he's doing at the moment. And for the next manager, I want that the drive and hunger and ambition that Ange Postecoglou had. That's what Celtic need in the building. They need someone who can change minds within the building too, which is something I feel like Ange did successfully as well. Like he did convince people within Celtic to do certain things in a certain manner, and it did change for a while. Listen, for the long-term ambitions of Celtic, I don't think we can continue to rely on this kind of cult of personality of a manager. I think you need proper sporting structures, etc., in place. But I still think you need a manager with strong will. And Ange probably has the strongest will of any manager that I can remember at Celtic. So fair play to Ange. And I appreciate his honest, clear communication on this, because undoubtedly it would have rumbled on. And I do think him coming out and saying that, I appreciate that he's up front and honest about it, and there's no messing about. He's not coming back. That's it. That was a good part of my career. Now I'm on to something new.
Yeah, and I just realised that I hope I didn't imply that Martin O'Neill was taking a comfortable step coming back to Celtic, because it's a completely different scenario, and I don't think he's stepping into his comfort zone. I just want to be very, very clear on that. I can't see the comments, but I'm maybe second guessing myself. That's a very, very different scenario, and I'm not underplaying what Martin O'Neill's done. I love Martin O'Neill to bits. I'm going to make a slightly
Martin
bold...
O'Neill was bailing out Celtic, Euan. He was bailing out Celtic here. This isn't a comfort thing for Martin O'Neill. This is arguably one of the biggest challenges of Martin O'Neill's entire career, what he's done to step in at Celtic this season.
It's remarkable. Every single aspect of it's remarkable. So no, absolute credit there. And again, totally different circumstances. I will make one slightly bold prediction, John. I do think after this two-legged tie, I think if Stuttgart beat us or if we squeak in our victory, I think Sebastian Hoeneß will be a name that Celtic fans are going to remember. I think they will like his approach to football, even if it means maybe they'll like it in hindsight. I don't know, but I think he's one of these names that, like a bit like Marco Rose, who we've either come up against or will come up against in Europe, and they like the look of him. So that's my bold prediction. It could be rubbish, but I think aesthetically,
I think Celtic fans might appreciate him. I mean, he spoke well about Celtic yesterday. I don't know if you've seen his press conference. It's up on the Celtic YouTube if anyone wants to check it out. He spoke in English about Celtic and their strengths, etc. Very much doing the Europa League manager thing or the European manager thing of being very respectful and talking up the opposition, which of course he's going to do. Just on him, I just feel like maybe he's a level above what Celtic can attract right now. The interesting chat that he might be next in line for one of these big German jobs, specifically maybe Bayern Munich. I think he's got links there, doesn't he, with Bayern Munich? I don't know that Dortmund, because of the Bayern links, whether that would be viable, but certainly chat that he could be in line for a big German job, the next big German job that comes up, given the job that he's done at Stuttgart.
Yeah, so Sebastian Hoeneß is the son of Dieter Hoeneß, who you'll fans of a certain vintage will remember him, outstanding player. And his uncle's Uli Hoeneß. Sorry, excuse me, higher German, tripped me up there. Uli Hoeneß, who is the he's like the sort of Derek Ray called him like, or was it either Derek or Stefan called him like the godfather of Bayern Munich. He runs the show. And he's helped turn them like from the sort of FC Hollywood days into like being the Bayern Munich that they are today. Like this wave of Bayern Munich success is a lot down to Uli Hoeneß. So yeah, it would be surprising if that link didn't come across. Yeah, he probably is a tier above like what we could realistically attract. But I'm saying that because I think again like Marco Rose or other teams we've come up against, I do get a feeling that like he might turn some heads tonight, or certainly like he'll become a bigger deal in terms of like a UK audience. I'm just projecting. I think he will be a name to watch, and I think like it's really really interesting to see how he's going to set up against us and kind of what happens as a result.
Okay, folks, we're going to leave it there. We will have coverage again tomorrow. I think Josh is at the game tonight for us. We won't have a reaction up tonight. Just it ends up too late by the time all the press conferences and mix zone take to discuss Celtics. Whatever happens, whatever transpires in the Europa League tonight. Euan, do you have a prediction for us? Is it positive, optimistic, or is it a pessimistic prediction from yourself?
No, I'm going to be optimistic. I think we're capable of winning this game 2-1. But I do think I know away goals don't count in the same way as they used to, but I do think we will concede. I think the Stuttgart are a very good attacking team. I think keeping it down to 1 will be pretty massive. And I do think they can be got at. I am almost certain that Fotheringham and Maloney will have looked at the games that they have lost, including those games against Roma and Fenerbahce, in the league against St. Pauli. Like they're not invincible. They're very, very good, but they're not invincible. So yeah, I'm thinking Martin O'Neill in Europe. Let's win let's win the home game. See what happens over in Germany. But yeah, I think 2-1's possible. I genuinely do.
Yeah, Kaiser Sose, I think Celtic will win 3-1 tonight, and we will see where the Stuttgart team are in the follow-up tie. Their priorities might have shifted towards the league and maintaining the Champions League spot. Listen, that's what I would say about the Europa League. It's quite unpredictable. It's not because teams have different priorities in the season. Again, Stuttgart are chasing a Champions League spot. They are kind of flying high in Bundesliga at the moment. They might just take their eye off the ball here, and that might give Celtic an opportunity. Likewise, I would say the Scottish Premiership is very much a priority for Celtic at the moment, and that often throws in a bit of a wild card in these matches that you can't really predict too much. So everything within me is saying that I don't think tonight will be a positive experience for Celtic. That's not to say it won't be. I'm covering myself there. And I just think I'm kind of where what Man and Neil was saying yesterday. I think this is a big ask for Celtic with the way the squad is at the moment, with the challenges that they've already been through this year. I'd love to be surprised and shocked, and I would love to see Celtic do something tonight and take a step towards this, getting this, anvil around our neck, off our neck with regard to this knockout thing. I just don't think this is the year for that to happen. But we live in eternal hope, Euan, and that's why we support Celtic, because we have some sort of faith or hope going into every single match, regardless of who we play. I'm sure by kick-off tonight, I will have built myself up to the point of Celtic can do something here. So hopefully I feel like that later. I'm not quite there yet. Give me a few hours is what I would say, Euan.
That's fair. I mean, look, we're only 5 days removed from Valentine's Day. The romantic in me says it's Martin O'Neill in the dugout. It's Stuttgart. All that time's passed. I mean, it sounds like a cliche. This is what it's all about. It feels not written in the stars is a very, very hackneyed way of saying it, but there's something romantic about it. And I think that's like, at its core, that's what's so great about football, to be honest. The fact that it could happen and circumstances line up and all that stuff. I'm fully waffling now, so I'll leave it
there. Well, Hazel says, how about Hatate hat-trick tonight, John? I think that's a good time to say, like, maybe we're all getting a bit carried away. Thanks for your time as always, Hazel. Thanks everyone in the live chat. Appreciate all the chat today. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you think is going to happen this evening at Celtic Park. and we'll see you tomorrow morning next time on the Celtic Way.